Hey Tamers, and welcome to another deck profile. Today we got MirageGaogamon. New support we finally got in BT11, and it's actually a very fun deck to play, so let's get into it. So as you already know, we're doing 4 of the Wanyamons. If you have a blue Tamer in play when you attack, you get to draw 1 card, and that is just phenomenal. This is probably the best new blue Digi-Egg we have in general. It's just really nice. Starting off with the level 3s, aka rookies, we got the new Gaomon from BT11. On play, you reveal top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 blue Tamer and 1 card with Gaogamon from its name, and you trash the rest. The inherit 1 attacking once per turn. If you have a blue Tamer in play, you can basically return an opponent's level 3 Digimon from your opponent's side of the field back to their hand, which is awesome because this deck really focuses a lot on getting memory, and certain effects trigger getting memory. And if there's Midokis on the field or any floodgate cards that prevent you from gaining memory, then well, you have a problem. So that is a good way to get rid of level 3s. Moving on, we got 4 of the BT4 Gaomon. So I'm really sticking with a MirageGaogamon tribal deck. And so the other Gaomon that we only have is from BT4, the Digiverse one. It actually comes up here with this deck profile that I am playing with, so we'll get into that when we do. And then last but not least, I'm running 4 of the Jellymons just to be consistent with returning Digimon in play back to the owner's hand. And that is what Jellymon does as an inherit once per turn. When an effect adds a card to your hand, return one of your opponent's level 3 or lower to its owner's hand, of course. So what's cool is you're thinking, okay, how do we trigger that? We're triggering it from Wanyamon, because Wanyamon, it allows you to, it triggers to draw when you attack, and now that's going to pop off Jellymon's inherit. So that's it for the level 3s, aka rookies. Level 4, we're doing the 4 of the Gaogamon, BT11. This one, when attacking once per turn, if your opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, you gain 1 memory. Now you're thinking like, okay, are you really going to swing with a champion, risking it dying or getting blocked or anything like that? Yes, at least for this one, because you are going to give them jamming. And then the inherit, 1 attacking once per turn. If you have a Tamer in play, return 1 back to their hand. So same thing as the rookie level 3. You'll have two of the same inherits, which is really nice because sometimes you'll build and you don't have this one or you don't have that one, but you have one or the other, which will trigger the inherit. Up next, we got 4 of the Digiburst Gaogamon. And here's where, you know, the other Digiburst comes into play here, right? So this one, you Digiburst 2. So basically get rid of 2 cards from its source, and then it triggers draw 1, which is awesome. So what you can do, you can swing, and then you're using your Wanyamon to draw. After you draw, when you're going to have jamming, which you will, he will survive. Then you can Digiburst, return this back to your hand. Now you have another rookie to kind of start building off in the bottom. And now you're drawing 2 for that 1 turn, which is really nice. So 4 of the Gaogamons. And then last but not least, 2 of my Kumamon hybrid. Of course, you could do the 2 Lobomon, but just having that additional effect to strip when it's doable. But if not, you can just stick with the Lobomon just because this is a Tamer heavy deck profile. So that's it for the level 4s, aka champions. For the level 5s, we are doing the MirageGaogamon from BT11. When digivolving until the end of your opponent's turn, this Digimon gains blocker and gets 2000 DP until the end of your opponent's next turn for every 4 cards that your opponent has. So if they have 8, now he's jumping up to 4000 DP and he's being a blocker. I'm sorry, he's jumping up to 11,000 DP and he is a blocker until your opponent's turn ends, which is awesome because obviously it allows you to block. Then the other 4 we're running is the BT4 one, the Digibursting 2, MirageGaogamon. This one, when you Digiburst 2, you can return one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon back into your opponent's hand, which is amazing because now you're talking about getting rid of blockers and of course level 3s. And then the inherit, well, you have a Tamer and play, this Digimon gains 2000 DP, which is fantastic because this deck does lack having more DP. And that's pretty much it for the ultimates. Now for the level 6s, we're going to do this really simple. We are just running 4 of the MirageGaogamons. We are not using the old one as much as I do love it because he cannot be blocked. And that is awesome if you're going against blockers, of course, but this one is just so much better that that effect kind of doesn't matter. So when Digivolving, return one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon to its owner's hand. If no Digimon was returned by this effect, your opponent adds the top card of the security stack to your hand. Now you're thinking, I'm like, okay, well, this deck really just focuses on putting stuff into their hand, kind of helping them out. Yes and no. We'll get into this. So all turns, once per turn. When an effect adds a card to your opponent's hand, gain 1 memory for every 4 cards that your opponent has. What is amazing is that, let me give you an example. Let's say it's your opponent's turn. They're at 3. They play memory boost. They're going to go to 0. They're getting a card from an effect, which is memory boost. Now this Gaogamon's effect triggers since it's all turns. And if they have at least 4 cards, now you're gaining 1 memory and now you're ending their turn. So it's really amazing. The other thing that I didn't talk about was the inherit of the BT11 one is all turns, once per turn. When an effect adds cards to your opponent's hand, unsuspend this Digimon. So when you get that DP from his own effect, you can just swing. You'll most likely be at 9,000, 11,000, or you'll get jamming. And then you can Digivolve into the MirageGaogamon, trigger his effect, and now all turns once per turn. You know you're gonna give your opponent a card in their hand, and this is gonna unsuspend because of the MirageGaogamon, and you're gonna get the memory, and he's still a blocker, and he's still getting the DP increase as well. So it is pretty nasty. So moving on to the Tamers, actually. We're doing 4 of the new Nikolai, BT11. So starting your main phase, give one of your Digimon with Gaogamon or Gaomon jamming. It's nuts. So this is why I did a tribal deck profile, because this is going to give all of them jamming. And this, now we're going back into the champion that I was telling you, that it doesn't matter. You can attack and gain that memory because you have jamming. So it doesn't matter. The ultimates as well. So it really doesn't matter. It's awesome. Your turn, when an effect adds cards to your opponent's hand by suspending this Tamer, gain 1 memory. So now you're gaining memory from this one, all turns once per turn. This one also triggers, and what's cool about this one, you do not need to have any Digimon in play. And of course they do stack, so if you have 4, now you're gaining 4 memory, and Floodgate cards can't stop it because it is a Tamer. So for the Nikolai, just having jamming is just such, it is disgusting. Up next, we're playing the old Thomas BT4 on play, trigger draw 1, which is cool. And during your main phase, if your opponent has 8 or more cards, you can suspend this Tamer to unsuspend one of your Digimon with Gao in its name. So potentially, with the ultimate here, the whole setup here, if you just have to do this really quickly, we have these 2 Tamers. You got your MirageGaogamon. You swing with your MirageGaogamon. You can Digivolve, right? And if it's still your turn, let's say you go back to 0. You want to suspend here for the MirageGaogamon. You gain memory here. You suspend this to gain another memory. You'll swing, and now if they have 8 cards or more, you could suspend Thomas to unsuspend him, and you can go ahead and swing again, or leave him standing if you want him to be a blocker. So that's potentially up to three hits in 1 turn. And yeah, it is nasty. And of course this stacks as well. So if you have 2, now you can swing up to 5 times, 4 times. And yeah, you could definitely, it's quick. It can be really quick if you are all set up. So 3 of the Thomases, 4, it's too much. I see him too much. Last but not least, 2 of a lot of these deck profiles that I've been making have had some older Tamers come along, and for this deck there is no exception either. We're playing BT9, Matt, and Sora. This is really awesome because you're putting a lot of cards into your opponent's hand, and your draw power is good with the Wanyamon. So now, if you don't know what this does, start of your main phase. Start of your main phase means after you decide if you're going to move up a Digimon from the breeding area or not, if you're able to. When you do that, that is when your main phase begins. Just to clear that up. So now, Start of your main phase, if you have 8 or more cards in your hand, gain 1 memory. If your opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, gain 1 memory. So you can gain up to 2 memory with this, which is awesome. The other one is, it doesn't come up as much because all the inherits do come from the Gaomon line, but you can never have too much. Your turn, when one of your blue or red Digimon becomes unsuspended, you may suspend this Tamer to return one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon to its owner's hand. And if that triggers, somehow if your all turns don't trigger, now there you go. It's just another card for you to not only gain memory, but potentially bouncing Digimon as well, which helps your Gaogamon line because all the effects trigger when you add when you add a Digimon, when you add a card to your opponent's hands by an effect. So we are doing 9 Tamers in total. Not that many, but good enough. Up next, moving into the option cards, we're doing 2 of the blue Memory Boost. Memory Boost is phenomenal, especially in this deck, because there's so much bouncing power that you have that you'll always be able to trigger this and get you to memory, because like I said, you'll always be bouncing level 3s back to your opponent's hand. 2 is good. Up next, here you can kind of play with this one, but I'm running 3 Cocytus. You can do 3 memories and 2 Cocytus, but Cocytus, of course, if you don't know what it does, it just returns one of your opponent's Digimon to its owner's hand. What makes this card phenomenal is if you have the Tamer, so let's say you have Nikolai and or MirageGaogamon, if you play a Cocytus Breath, you're adding a card to your opponent's hand by an effect. So this triggers, automatically making it a 6 cost. This would trigger, allowing you're not going to spend it, but you know what I mean. Basically, it's going to reduce the cost. And that is why Cocytus Breath is super, super good in this MirageGaogamon deck that I am running 3. Last but not least, some more spice in here. 2 offensive plug-in A's. And giving your jamming Digimon security attack +1, why not? And as you already seen with the MirageGaogamon, he's able to unsuspend himself if you have the level 5 underneath. And when you do that, potentially you could play this for 2. Swing, you have jamming, so you don't care about getting deleted because you're not going to. Check 2, Digivolve into the MirageGaogamon, and if your opponent has enough cards in their hand to where you unsuspend and it's still your turn, he still has a security attack +2, and I can go ahead and swing. And if you just have 1 of the Thomas, you unsuspend and you can close out game. Insane. This deck is actually really, really fun. This deck is missing burst mode, and we are going to get it eventually. It is fun. How are you guys running it? Are you guys running any different cards? If you are, let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for the support, and I'll see you guys in the next video.